Shabbat Shalom, and I wish you a Chag Sameach for Pesach in advance. Why so far in advance? Well, actually, Pesach is not so far away, and in general, a great deal of preparation needs to be done for Pesach, not just in terms of dishes and koshering, but I would say in terms of taking care of one's inner chametz. That is actually the more important work that needs to be done. The outer work is really just a way to facilitate that all-important inner work. And so we just celebrated Purim as kind of a last blowout of joy and chaos before we begin the reordering process of preparing for Pesach. Now, the most important thing to understand about Pesach is that the story that we retell during the Pesach Seder, the Haggadah, which literally means the telling, is not just an historical story. Of course, it is a very important part of Israelite history and the master story of the Jewish people, actually. It's what we're all about as a people. It's when we came into existence as a people, and it's rightly celebrated every year at Pesach. But there is also tremendous spiritual import in the reenactment of the Pesach story. One has to understand clearly that Egypt is not just an historical or geographical reality. The promised land of Israel is not just an historic or geographical reality. And that Moses and Pharaoh are characters that live in our lives every single day of our lives. So every day, ideally, is a going forth from Egypt. Every day, ideally, we get a little closer to our promised land of our dreams, whatever that may be. Not literally the state of Israel necessarily, but the perfect life situation as we can conceive of it now. The job that we want, the relationship that we want, the neighborhood that we want, the kind of feeling about life that we really desire, is all part of our promised land. And what prevents us from getting there, what prevents us from escaping from our Egypt, is our chametz, whatever that may be. Now, chametz usually is translated as leavening, and we're supposed to remove every bit of leavening from our person and our belongings in the lead up to Passover. But chametz is also an inner reality, and you can understand chametz in a broader spiritual sense as being the rot, the fermentation, the puffery, the egotism that are the everyday reality of our lives. You know, the ego is a funny thing. Everybody has one, and everyone has to deal with it. And we have the ego to thank for being individuals at all. So really, it's an important part of our being that we have an ego. But the problem with the ego is that it very, very easily gets puffed up, and it runs away with itself and takes us with it. We get involved in all kinds of fantasies of anger and vengeance and tension and stress that really don't belong to life, ideally don't belong to life, certainly not a life in the promised land. And so Pesach is a way of accelerating our journey out of the land of Egypt, a way of evaluating what our particular chametz is at any particular stage of our life on this journey of liberation, and hopefully bringing us a step closer to the promised land of our dreams. There is one little catch here, however. One has to realize that the promised land of our dreams is an ever-receding horizon. In other words, just like Moses, who glimpsed the promised land just before he died but never got there, in a sense, we will never fully arrive at our promised land either. Because the funny thing about promised lands is, once the promise is fulfilled, a new promise emerges on the horizon. And then we see another ideal state towards which we want to aspire. And that is how life progresses from step to stage of greater and greater liberation and fulfillment, until the ultimate stage of fulfillment is reached, what the Haggadah calls Beit HaBechira, a name for the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, which is to say a state of full enlightenment in which we are fully in communion with God and with the divinity within ourselves and within each of our fellow human beings. In this state, one would live in a condition of love and harmony and compassion for every human being and even every animal and plant and mineral on this planet. That is a state to be desired and to be hopefully fulfilled in the not too distant future. I think that we're in a time of great transformation right now. Great liberations from Egypt are happening not just in Egypt but all over the world right now. And may it happen for you and your family personally this coming Pesach. Again, Shabbat Shalom, Chag Pesach Sameach, and enjoy.